Who are the 45ers? The 45ers is a worldwide community-based club. They are made up of like-minded owners, riders and builders of vintage Harley-Davidson flatheads. And we are proud partners. For more information, visit 45ersclub.com.
Right, if your bike's been laid up all winter, just a few cursory checks to go through. It also depends when you laid it up. If you take the sump plug out, yeah,
Yep.
and put a tray underneath the back of it, if it's got a drip tray, if it's got a skid pan rather, there's a hole in the back. If not, just put a tray underneath it, and then if it's ever wet sumped over the winter, you can just put your drain plug back in and pour that clean, as long as the tray is clean, and then pour your oil back into the oil tank. If you haven't drained the oil or taken the sump plug out, if you kick it over slowly, if it's really making a gurgling noise, that means it's wet sumped, yeah?
Right.
Normally they just pour oil all over the floor, but if it has filled the crankcase up, right, and you hear the noise down there, that's your breather, your crankcase breather, and you can hear it hissing out of there. Hear it?
Yeah.
Now if that's making a horrible gurgling noise, then the crankcase is full of oil. So take your drain plug out the other side. So see the aluminium ribs going round.
Yeah.
There's a nut, half-inch nut right at the bottom. That's your crankcase drain.
Okay.
So you've got a hole in the bottom of the skid pan here, if it has got a skid pan on. If not, just put a tray underneath there. That hole's designed to let the oil out. So if it is gurgling or you're not too sure about it, undo that. Let it all drain for 10 minutes, quarter of an hour while you're checking everything else out. Then you put your plug back in, pour your clean oil that's come out, if you're not doing an oil change, back into the oil tank, and that'll keep your oil level up, yeah?
Yep.
So just pour it back in there. Obviously check on your dipstick that you've got plenty of oil in it. It's got refill there, dangers down there, refills there, so it needs probably another ½ an inch of oil, but what you want to do, as long as it's not below the danger level, is run it, yeah? And then any oil that's in the system will pump back up into the tank, then check your level. If you overfill these, they'll burst out everywhere. It goes all over the place. You can take your spark plugs out and clean them. Obviously never does any harm to clean your spark plugs, or if you're inclined, put a new set in it.
Why would they degrade over the winter?
They won't, it's just after you've stopped riding it, there'll still be the carbon on there. You might as well, at the beginning of the season, you might as well clean that off.
Yeah.
Set them back up to your points, plug gap. We've gone all out and bought new feeler gauges you can actually read the numbers on now.
Does that help?
Oh yeah. So 21 thou. Wipe them down first because you don't want oil on them, because that will disturb, make the points not spark. Right, so wind her over. So she's on her highest point. Right, can you see those points opening? So that's slightly too small, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get a screwdriver, set that back up. Always set your points before you set the ignition, because it alters it. I think 1 thou points gap out makes about 4 or 5 degrees difference on the timing, which is a lot. Right, that's a nice points gap, nothing's moving there now, you see?
Mm-hmm.
I'll lock her up there. Sometimes you have to play around with them a bit, because when you lock them up it can bend the points plate a little bit. Yeah, they're a bit quirky, but lock them down. That'll be alright. Right, so what I would do now is check your timing. You need a 7/8 spanner to take the timing inspection cover off. So in there, on the side of the flywheel, there's a slot. That's your timing mark.
Yeah.
So we know that's your front cylinder firing point on that small lobe. See the narrow lobe, and you've got your wide lobe on the back. That's the rear cylinder, that's the front cylinder. Always time a Harley up to the front cylinder. So what you do, you wind it over. If you're on your own, put a screwdriver in the hole on the timing side, and as you wind it over, put pressure in it towards the flywheel. Right, and the screwdriver's just gone in the slot, I can feel it, yeah?
Yeah.
So then what you do, you look in the hole.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
Right, the idea is to get that slap bang in the middle of that circle, yeah?
Yeah.
So you always want to come up to your timing mark, so go past it that way, backwards, yeah? And then bring her back up to the centre. Takes up all the backlash in any gears or cogs. So what you do is make sure you've got valve lash there, yeah? I've got valve lash there.
What is valve lash?
Where you do your tappet adjustment, that's your lash between. You have to have a gap there, which is why you set your tappets.
Yeah.
At like 5 and 7 or 4 and 6. I set them at 4 and 6 because as everything expands and heats up, as it heats up, it expands.
Yeah.
So you have to have a tolerance level there. Otherwise, once it's got hot, if your tappets are too tight, the valve won't seat because it's all expanded too much and it doesn't seal the gases on the top of the valve head. So that's your timing. So there we do the old make sure that is fully that way. Get your fag paper. Right, so that's a little bit too tight. Let's bung it around a bit. That'll be need adjusting now because we've altered the points, yeah?
Yeah.
All makes a difference. But that points gap was smaller, which it was, then that would have opened. Right, see that just started to slip through?
Yeah.
So that was that slightest little bit of movement on there, that's all it takes. Right. So you've drained your oil out, yeah? I won't take the plugs out and clean them, but take your plugs out and clean them. We've reset the points, we've reset the timing, okay?
Yeah.
So happy with that. Now what you want to do is check your tappets. So you've got 2 inlets, 2 exhausts, yeah? Inlets are 4 thou, I set them to, exhausts are 6 thou. So the way it works is whenever either one is fully up, you adjust the other one, yeah? So you wind her over, and you bump her over slowly, slowly, slowly. Right, that's gone, that's fully up, okay?
Okay.
You tell when it just stops moving, that's fully up. So then you adjust the opposite hand. So we want 4 thou. 2, 3, 4 thou. We want that in there. Oh, so that's a nice fit, that's okay, yeah? So we know that doesn't need resetting. If you want to reset it, 2 7/16 spanners, hold that, top one, undo the lock nut.
Yeah.
Obviously screwing it in will give you a bigger gap, bringing it out will give you a tighter gap. Then hold it, lock it off. So now we want to swap over, get this one up in the air. That's it. Right, so he's a little bit tight. Undo your lock nut. Don't have to go very far with it. Well, that's probably enough. And then you undo that, wind it back in. A little bit at a time, just a small piece. Okay, so he's gone in now. Okay, so what you're looking for, a nice slidey fit, yeah?
Yeah.
Now that may move very slightly when you lock it up. Right. Okay, so that's that one adjusted. You've got a nice sliding fit, yeah?
Okay.
So then you know you've done your inlets. Start your caps back down so you know that you've done them, and go to your exhaust. Exhaust coming up. fully up. And we want 6 thou on the exhaust. 6 thou. Right, he's a little bit loose, yeah?
Okay.
So we'll bring him out. That's a nice sliding fit then again. So hold the top one once you set it, lock your bottom down. That's tightened up. What you can do is just give the whole thing a very slight turn, but you can only do that when you're doing them up. If you had to undo them, you have to do it properly.
Yeah.
This, you can just get a little sneak on it. There you go. So you've got a nice sliding fit then. Well, he's a little bit tight, so let's see if it will just go, just giving it a little tweak. That needs more, so we'll back him off on the lock nut. That should be enough. Nice sliding fit, yeah? Right, so now you can do all your tappet chest back up.
Is it true that it's best not to intermittently start your bike up over the winter for fear of condensation?
No, you gotta, if you're gonna do that, you need to leave it running or ride it.
Right.
You either need to leave it running for a good hour. Starting anything for 2 minutes and turning it off never does them any good at all.
Why is that?
It's just on off, you get a heat cycle through it, you know? Right, that's them locked up. Right, so while you've been doing that, your oil should have drained out the crankcase, yeah?
Okay.
So put your plug back in, clean tray, like I said, pour your oil back into the oil tank. So anything that's in that crankcase will come back out. I mean, inherently, you can start it up with oil in the bottom of the crankcase and the scavenge pump will clear it, but it will smoke like an absolute pig for about 5-10 minutes.
Right.
So, and you're getting lower crankcase compression, so you're better off taking the oil out if you realistically. Now obviously if you've drained it out of fuel, put some fuel in it, open the fuel tap, make sure the carburetor isn't leaking anywhere if the float's got stuck or anything. This one hasn't been drained. We'll open the fuel up, just leave it. If it's going to pour out, it will pour out. So in that case you have to just all it'll be is either a lump of crap got in the needle jet there or the float's moved itself, dried out, sticking, whatever. But just turn it on and let it fill up the bowl. That probably would have been leaking by now. Right, so shut him back down for a minute. Right, let's have a look at our battery. If you haven't had it on a optimizer, which I don't recommend on 6-volt batteries, they don't seem to like it as far as I'm concerned. Give it a quick test on that, see what we've got. 5.86, that's a bit low. Realistically, you want to see above 6 volts, but that'll be enough to fire this up and then it'll charge itself, yeah?
Yeah.
But ideally, you'll never get a lot more than 6.3 out of a 6 volt, 6.35. And check your acid levels or your water level. Right, so you want to look down in there and check your acid levels. As long as they are, you have got a fill line, they're quite hard to see on these, but as long as they're above the plates, which you can see in there, that's fine. If you're worried about it, top it up a little bit with deionised water or battery acid if you've got it, but don't go mad with it, don't fill them right up because all they do is fester more. If it is outside in a cold garage that isn't heated or anything like that, take your battery out and just take it inside with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it don't have to be like leave it in an airing cupboard hot, just normal temperature. If it freezes all the time, they don't like it. Right, so the battery's on. And the first thing I normally do, make sure you're not on a cam load, which we're not. Ignition on, and just flick the points. That means the points, it'll be sparking the plugs, or should be. Right, so before you do any more, check the lights through. That's blackout lamps. It should be normal lamps, that's quite dull, so when we fire it up, it'll probably be better. So yeah, just do a lighting check through, make sure it all works, you know. Yeah, she's quite flat, so let's just see if she'll fire up. Right, so fuel on. A full choke, full throttle. getting a little bit of fuel by the feel of it. 2 clicks down, ignition on. Choker again. When they've been sitting over the winter, you normally have to prime them more, kick them a few more times, but then they should go, you know. All the oil that's in the bottom of that crankcase, like I said, we didn't drain it, but it wasn't overly oiled because you couldn't hear it making that squelchy noise, yeah? So 10 minutes of running, that'll all clear and it'll be clean as a belt. Should just go for, once it's got a little bit of heat in them, we don't need choke, don't need priming, so just go. That's when the timing's right, the points are right, everything's set up. So they will sit there and do that all day. That's what they do, you know. So that's basically it for the engine.
Is there a couple of things that these bikes really don't like doing if they're left dormant for a while?
Normally carburetor, points and carburetor, that's generally it. And obviously front suspension's all working okay, nothing rattling around in there. And all I generally tend to do is go over your grease points.
Yeah.
You know, if there's loads and loads of grease hanging around zone, it doesn't need greasing. Just give them a touch in, you know. Probably half a pump on the grease gun. So obviously you've got grease in your service manual or whatever, it's got all the grease nipple points and everything. Go through the lot. The one that people always forget, that one under the seat. Should be one in there, this is the later frames, I haven't got it. One on the brake pedal, which is a normal one to forget. End of the clutch there, quite another common one to get rid of. People just, you think it's been done once and don't do it, you know. You should go over it at the beginning. It only take a little dink, half a squirt on one, you know. Peace of mind at the beginning of the year. Points first, then ignition timing, then do your tappets, clean your plugs if you want to, and the main thing, see, if we'd have drained that crankcase there would have been no smoke at all out of that.
Right.
But it's just where it's been sitting for, I mean, I don't know how long this has been sitting, a long time though. Yeah, that's it basically.